Good morning. Welcome into the first of several live stream interviews this week. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope your Monday morning is getting off to a good start. And we're going to take some time here and get to know Jacob Wildermuth, wide receiver out of the University of St. Thomas. He is 6'3", 220 pounds roughly. Just finished his college career, and we're lucky to have him as a client here at Hidden Gems. We're excited about his potential and the opportunities that we see coming down the pipe for him. So, without further ado, Jacob, good morning. Welcome in. How's your weekend been?
It's been great. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the kind words. Excited to be a part of this moving forward. And yeah, enjoyed the weekend. Nice weather out. So finally hitting summertime soon.
Well, you're one of a couple Minnesota clients that we have on board. Luke Dunsmore, a big defensive end out of St. Cloud State, and then Concordia St. Paul, I think it is. He's a client. He's a big defensive end. So you're one of a few Minnesota clients that we have available. But so the weather's starting to kind of warm up a little bit. You guys are getting out of the snow season, or
finally, yep, enjoying our nice 3-4 months of good sun, and then transitioning right back into winter. But
there you go.
It'll be good. I'm excited for it.
I got you. Okay. Now, are you originally from Minnesota, or did you like move there and kind of grow up there, or what's the backstory?
Born and raised in Minnesota. Grew up in Maple Grove. So my mom is from Minnesota. My dad is from Maryland.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, are you a Gophers fan, or?
Yeah, I think I'm a Gophers fan, but I think once I got to St. Thomas, I tried to hold up our pride on the other side of the river.
There you go. I got you. I didn't know if you were a PJ Fleck fan, row the boat.
Yeah, no, I got a couple buddies over there, so I'm definitely supporting them.
Okay, all right. So, talk about your time at St. Thomas real quick. Tell us about the last 4 years and how that's been for you.
Yeah, no, it's been a great experience. Came in during COVID, so we didn't have a season initially. Had a bunch of practices that fall, transitioned into the spring, and then 2021 was that first season for me. And it was a lot of development as a player, a lot of maturity and football IQ that I felt like I've built upon each year. And I felt like it's kind of transitioned me into, my potential that I still have, but also the player I am now.
Okay. I have a biological brother and I have a step brother. And my biological is right around 6'3", 6'4", has been at least 6 foot since middle school. My step brother's about 6'2", and I am the unlucky one at 5'7". So I can tell you that growing up, there was a lot of driveway battles playing basketball late at night and getting beat by two ogres. And my brother's been 6 foot since middle school. Now, have you been pretty tall since early on, or did you kind of have a growth spurt later on in college? Or
no, I feel like I've always been on the taller side of at least growing up through my grade. But I will say probably around junior year of high school is when I really shot up to 6'3", 6'4", and that's when I was really kind of at my peak time of, okay, I'm actually getting a lot bigger.
Now, are your parents tall, or?
Yeah, my dad's around 6'2", 6'2", 6'3". My mom's around 5'10", so
okay,
definitely get some good height from them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know growing up, my grandmother on my dad's side was like 5'9", 5'10", and they always said that back in the 50s and stuff, that was kind of tall for a female. So I can kind of see the combination of the two.
Yeah,
you're getting some height between the two of them.
Yeah, definitely.
What did your high school coaches think when junior year starts rolling around, you start shooting on up? Like, what's their thought process with you?
I think they've always, at least growing up through the football program at Wayzata, I think they always saw some sort of potential with me as an athlete that knows the game, that can just be put into a situation no matter the position.
Okay.
So I played a little bit of quarterback early on my freshman and sophomore year.
Wow. Okay.
Got into wide receiver, and I fell in love with that. And then that's when it kind of my first opportunity playing varsity junior year kind
Yeah.
of set up to being able to get a chance at making an impact in the wide receiver room.
Okay. Yeah. How was that transition to the wide receiver position?
It was great. I played running back most of my life growing up, as every young kid does. And I had an awesome coach when I was younger who really encouraged me to kind of play wide receiver, and always thought I had good hands, always thought I was a smart football player. And as I kind of transitioned into it going into high school, I studied the game a lot. I loved the way football was kind of turning out into a passing game.
Mhm.
And I felt like there was a real art and craft as a receiver, that I could really express my kind of style and playing style with that.
What style would you say that is for you? What's your playing style?
Um, I would say it's smart, but calculated.
Okay.
So I think I'm very, I have a plan, whether that's the type of route I'm running or the play design along with the coverage that the defense has given me. So I think I like to consider myself as someone who's one step ahead, but always willing to put my body on the line and make a play.
Now, early on, when you started shooting up and your high school coaches start noticing, okay, now he's 6'2", he's 6'3", did they give you a chance to show your ability to run routes, or did they just mostly use you in go balls or fade route situations or 50-50 jump balls or
Yeah, it was a lot of 50-50. We took pride in running the ball in high school.
Mm,
So I think being able to, I had a lot of coaches who were like, just establish yourself in the blocking game. So
okay.
I took pride in being a teammate, and being able to be physical on the outside. And when those opportunities did come, it was a lot of, your typical Minnesota type routes, slants, post, go balls, a lot of kind of go get it in the air type of plays.
Okay. When did you really get a chance to show that, hey, I'm not just a jump ball guy, I'm not just a fade guy, like I can actually line up and run routes,
Mhm.
you know,
I think,
drags, digs, slants, crossing routes, whatever. Like, when did you really get to show that?
yeah, I think it was towards the end of my junior year, where I think my coach started seeing some potential in me in terms of, okay, he can run routes, he can move.
Mhm.
And I think being able to establish myself towards the end of the season and really kind of contribute in a bigger way than I was early on, um, with some different double moves, some different red zone packages that I was able to work within. I think that's where I was able to start separating and kind of get a little bit of a notice.
Okay, I gotcha. What talk about the hardest part, I guess, of the whole transition process to receiver? Was it the route running itself and understanding the tree and the timing, or was it learning how to create different releases so that you could get yourself off the line and get away from people? Or what part was the most challenging piece of that transition?
I think it was just figuring out how I maneuver as a receiver, especially as I started growing, and being able to be comfortable in my body of learning that my stride's going to be a little bit longer. I'm a
Mm,
bigger body. and defensive backs are going to want to get hands-on immediately with me. And so I think finding ways to, watch film, but also learn from a lot of the older guys that I was impacted by,
Right.
to get more of a, perspective, but also that kind of influence of how I can be as a receiver and how I can shape my own type of style.
I gotcha. Were you? When did you start, I guess, getting accolades or in high school? As far as, were you at some point? Did you kind of have a coming out party and start to maybe get some all state, all county, all region type recognition as a receiver, or were you pretty much an under the radar kind of guy?
I was an under the radar type of guy for the most part. I think senior year I had some like all conference, all district awards.
Okay.
But I think we had an amazing team. We went 13-0. We won state my senior year, and so we had a lot of impact players.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of us went under the radar just because of the team collective.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was able to make enough of an impact to lead me towards St. Thomas.
Okay, I gotcha.
Mm.
So you're used to winning rings. You're used to being on winning, in a winning program.
Mm.
What in that type of environment, high school wise, what was the recruitment like leaving your senior year? Like, were you getting a lot of notice, or I mean, again, pretty much under the radar, just not really a whole lot of teams showing interest at late, or what? What was your recruiting scenario?
Yeah, I had, I want to say it was 4 total football offers to go play college.
Okay.
3 of them at NSIC programs in the Division II level, and then St. Thomas, which was the last offer in January of my senior year. So it was a lot later. I didn't know if I was going to be playing college football. I knew that I could, but that recruiting process was definitely different and challenging.
Why St. Thomas? What was the gravitation towards that school from?
I mean, I wanted to win. I'm a winner. Like I'm super competitive in anything that I'm a part of. But I think just knowing the history of St. Thomas, but also, there's a difference between, your typical football locker room and then a winning culture.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted to step into. And so I kind of made that decision, after I was able to visit the school, talk to some of the coaches, but kind of hear some of the other experiences from other players. And I felt like that's where I wanted to be.
So talk about what was the coach's expectations for you coming in, being recruited? I mean, what were they telling you their expectation was for you as far as your fit into the offensive system and what they saw you being capable of doing on the field?
Yeah, I think they saw once I was able to get to camp that, I'm a bigger body, but I can be a little maneuver in the slot. I'm not just like a single type of receiver. I'm not just an X receiver, or I'm a slot, or I'm an H. But I can be well-rounded and have different tools in my bag to be able to go into different personnel groups, go into different packaging. So I think that my coaches saw me as someone who knows the playbook at each position, but can also we can move them around. We can put them at tight end if we need to. We can put them out in the slot. We can put them at outside. And so I felt like that was something that I had over some of my other peers who may have been just designated to a specific position.
Yeah, a lot of versatility.
Yep.
I gotcha. Do you consider yourself strictly a wide receiver, or in this modern day of football, with a lot of the spread systems and things like that, there's this now kind of wide receiver, tight end hybrid type ordeal.
Mhm.
Do you consider yourself a hybrid, or do you just consider yourself a true wide receiver?
I consider myself a hybrid for sure.
Okay.
Um, I think um, inside and outside, I feel like I will always be a mismatch.
Okay.
And I think that it comes with different ways you approach it.
Mhm.
And so I think, I'm big enough to kind of be that hybrid tight end where, if you need me to get down and gritty and block some guy, I will do that. And if you need me to make a move and get open, I can also do that. So I
Okay.
think it's a win-win for a coach.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, Talk to us about when you got on campus at St. Thomas. Kind of take us through the initial stepping on campus, and what were your thoughts, and um, how long did it take you to kind of adjust to college football?
Yeah, it definitely that first year in 2020 was a big adjustment for me, especially once we got sent home in the fall and we came back in the spring. I mean, we were practicing, 5, 6 days a week for 3 months straight with workouts every day, and I'm like, is this what college football is? I didn't know anything else. Um,
Well, yeah, you came in during the COVID time frame, so things were just a little bit different for you.
yeah, yeah. So it was a lot of separation from the team in terms of how we were grouped, just through the COVID protocol and having meetings with limited guys, and then also different practicing um, styles to kind of keep us spread out. So it was a lot of learning, but I felt like that was a key part in my development to be like, all right, if I really want to go do this, I'm gonna have to put 100% energy and focus and do this.
So, what was it like as far as learning the new playbook, learning the new system, adjusting to just that overall daily culture of working out, classes? I mean, yeah, you kind of had that in high school too, but
Mhm.
now it's a little bit more different level. And then there's community service projects, I'm sure. And um, did it take you a long time to really catch on to the playbook, to really kind of grasp the whole concept of what they were trying to do, or did you catch on pretty quickly?
I felt like I caught on pretty quickly, and I felt like part of that that I attribute that to is just being humble coming in. Everyone wants to come in, and you know, everyone who came in as part of my class and every class moving forward, they were either the best player on their high school team or one of the better players in that region or state. So I think it's when you come in with a mindset of, you know, I'm trying to kind of establish myself, in a way that may not come out as curious or wanting to learn, I think guys can fall back. And I felt like I wanted to come in, I wanted to absorb everything possible, learn from all the older guys who have played, who have been there through the program, but also just be like a student, like be someone who is going to ask for help, and I think that's some things that not a lot of guys will do initially. They're afraid to, mess up or whatever the case is when they're young. But I wanted to learn immediately. I wanted to learn right away. And I wanted to kind of gain my respect from my peers, through being a student.
How long did it take to get that respect?
I felt like you earn it quicker in different groups. I think in your wide receiver group, I think I was able to gain respect early on. But when you're going maybe team on team versus, one-on-ones or we're doing skelly. It's a little bit different. Being able to gain your respect from, different position groups. And I think like I wanted to establish that with my offense first.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to gain trust in the quarterback room, but also show love to the O-line because it starts at the trenches. And being able to kind of pass that respect down and love down and being able to just kind of support my teammates and know like, I got you. So
I'm curious, was there kind of an old head DB that saw this young rookie come in 6'3", 200 plus pounds? Was there one of the DBs who were like, okay, I got to check this kid right out of the gate?
yeah, plenty of them. Plenty of them. I don't want to name names now, but no, but yeah, I think that's I'm all for competition, obviously. So I loved it immediately when I got in there. I love just like the culture of wide receivers, DBs going at it, and that's one of the first drills we did right when we got there. It was straight to one-on-ones, and it was straight to are you ready to play college football? So
let me ask you, what's your when you walk up to the line of scrimmage and you take and point your fist at the receiver, let him know if you're on or off.
mm-hmm.
Do you like to see off man coverage in front of you, or do you get excited when you see press man? Like, all right, now we're getting ready to go 1-on-1. I'm getting ready to show you what I can do to get off this line of scrimmage.
Yeah, no, I love press. I feel like
do you get like golf ball size eyes when you see that? Like, do you like, all right, it's go time right now?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think it just gives me more adrenaline to get ready to break off my route or make a move. And I think I'm always coming to the line with a plan. So I feel prepared.
Has there been a DB that you've manhandled, whether it be your own teammates or an opposing team? Has there been a DB that you feel like you just kind of had your way with all day, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've got a few of those guys on the list.
Okay. All right. Okay. So in other words, in the words of a particular Division I coach, and I won't name names, but you're basically saying you kind of have receipts, like you kind of keep a list or notes of.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Right.
Oh, and respect to all of them too. Like I think I had a lot of good battles in practice that allowed me to feel confident in game. I was able to kind of like, and that's what I felt like. As you were talking about early on, how did you kind of gain that respect? Like I would go up to the DBs and I would ask them, how did you read this, or how did you know I was breaking right here?
Right.
Just to get into their mind to feel like, okay, you think you're giving me advice, but really I'm already planning about how I'm going to get you the next rep.
You suckered them into winning the battle.
I got him good. So, but like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of like to do.
Did you start to kind of pick up on telltale signs, like if they line up a certain way, if they, I don't know, move their knee a certain way, or they got their hands a certain way, or just their body posture overall? Like, were there things you started kind of pick up on, like, okay, when that guy does that, I know what he's getting ready to try to do against me?
Yeah, totally. I mean, body language is key, but film does not lie. I think when you see someone continuously, in multiple games, you're going to be able to pick up on tendencies and habits that the DB might naturally go to,
Sure.
in a specific type of rep. So I felt like that's what was able to help separate things for me.
So in that first full season as a college football player, what was the overall record for the team?
I want to say we were 7-3.
7-3. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So still pretty good season overall.
Yep.
and then 2022, you're part of a conference championship team, right?
Yep, correct.
What was that like? When you win state at the high school level, and that's an amazing feat in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on a college team that wins a conference championship. Like, that's not an easy achievement, especially at the D1 level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was that like being a part of that?
It was special. I think we were all bought in. And we had, I think having been through that state team and then also this conference championship team, there's just a feeling of, we're just going to get it done no matter how it looks.
Yeah.
How the game goes. We just have that confidence that, we're going to win. And there's nothing that's going to try and stop us through that, no matter what way we're doing that. Maybe pretty or ugly, but we'll find a way. And I think that that translated a lot from the older guys who had that fifth-year opportunity with the COVID case. And so that leadership kind of was able to get passed down. And, I learned a lot and had a lot of respect for those guys. And they're a lot of the main reasons why we did have that special season.
What was that special season as far as the record? So go ahead and let everybody know how special it was.
So it was the first time a team transitioning from Division III to Division I has ever won a conference championship, let alone the quickest to do it. And I think we were also ranked, I think we finished the season ranked 17th in the FCS.
Okay.
Which that was the first time St. Thomas cracked the top 25 for all Division I sports. So it was a big achievement, and I think it was a big stepping stone for our school, let alone our football program.
Sure.
Because we all rally around each other, and as you see now, I think St. Thomas is making a splash in the Summit League. And so I think we're really making an impact in all these other sports. So we're happy that we were able to get that done and kind of pave a path for, our university.
What was the final overall record?
It was 10-1.
10-1.
Mm-hmm. And the first game was a rough one, but I think it was a lot of self-inflicted errors that we had. And we laugh about it every time we talk about it because, I think that game was so monumental for us for the rest of the season. And so it was it's a good laugh to kind of look back on.
Absolutely. What was your best game during that season?
I want to say Davidson. Me and another teammate who was a really great receiver for us and kick returner and punt returner. We were kind of both going back and forth together that game, and it just felt like things were clicking. And it was our homecoming, and so it was a big crowd, kind of middle of the season, where we started kind of making our mark and saying, "Oh, St. Thomas might have a chance this year." And it kind of led us to a great win and was really a big push of momentum forward for the rest of the year.
So how many? Run me through the stat line, the production line for the best game that you had.
Yeah, in my career.
Well, no, in that one particular game, the best game of that championship season. What was your stat line on the day?
I think I had 4 catches for 60 yards, 70 yards, and a touchdown.
Okay.
So, nothing where it's like going to jump off the page, but I felt like the plays I made were pretty impactful.
Now that was your sophomore?
Junior. Yep.
Junior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going into your senior year, what was the goals for you? What were your goals? Okay, this is the last go round. What were the goals going into the season?
I think I wanted to leave my mark in our receiver room, but I really wanted to make an impact and get recognition for it. But also, my biggest goal really was to, make sure that I'm leading in the best possible way. I
Sure.
want these young guys to feel the way that I felt when I first came in, and that was support. And so to kind of give that back was kind of like my main goal. And um, I hope I did a good job of that, and just being able to be the best teammate possible.
Now, let's talk about this because we got to talk about this. And before we jump into this next question,
Mhm.
for those of you watching this, I see we've got quite a few viewers. We're here with Jacob Wildermuth, wide receiver, University of St. Thomas, 6'3", 220-pound receiver, tight end hybrid, as he has stated. He feels he's more of the hybrid type. Conference champion, as we've talked about, his junior year, state champion in high school. And you get into the senior year, you get nominated for the AFCA All-State Good Hands team.
Mm-hmm.
And when it deals with community service, what did it mean to you to be on a list like that with such? I mean, obviously there's FBS guys and there's FCS guys on that list, but to be recognized for your community service efforts, what did that mean to you to be on that nomination list?
It was great, and I think that was more, I always joke around about that award in a sense because I have so many other teammates who are doing such impactful things alongside me. And I think that was something my parents took pride in, once they saw that kind of come out. Just because I think, my first priority is to serve others and make an impact in sports, but also just within the community. So it was exciting. I'm very appreciative that I was nominated for it, but I think it was just a testament for kind of the St. Thomas culture and how I was raised.
Talk about your community service efforts.
Yeah.
What kind of projects are you into, and talk a little bit about each one and why they're so important to you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Fellowship of Christian Athletes is what I was a part of in college, and one specific event that I was doing was a kind of a week-long kids camp. Me and a teammate had this overnight kids camp where we kind of were able to, teach and instill faith through sport,
Mm-hmm.
and how the two are intertwined together. And I take a lot of joy in working with kids who are passionate about what they do. They love football or they love their sport that they're playing, but they also have a strong heart. And I think that's what kind of motivates me to, make an impact and, serve within the community.
That's amazing. And FCA is a big thing all over the United States, and there's been a lot of significant people that have given time and participation to FCA. I just, you're one of the first clients we've had that has had a nomination to the AFCA All-State Good Hands team. I mean, I see it on TV during college football season, but to actually have a client that was actually nominated for that list, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's quite a distinct honor, and it's a testament to you, your family, and the way your parents raised you, your high school, your coaches, your teachers, your counselors, your college coaches. Everybody that's had a piece of mentoring you and guiding you and molding you, that you've taken community service so seriously, and to be nominated again amongst all those people is just an amazing feat. So that's really a cool thing, and I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about that, highlighted that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Now, as you move forward, trying to chase this pro football dream, what kind of community service efforts do you want to be involved in moving forward? What kind of things do you want to have an impact on or leave your mark on as a pro athlete?
Yeah, I think I guess, even these past couple months, but the past 4 years that I spent at St. Thomas, um, you learn a lot about how much of an impact you can make on people, no matter what platform you have. And I think for me, I take a lot of interest in sports impact, but also, education and kind of mentorship. I think um, I want to be someone who, the future, leaders of America can go to in terms of, you know, whatever that is, whether that's with school, whether that's with, their social life, whether they want to learn something about this, or they want to learn about, the business world. I feel like I want to be able to be a hand that they can always go to. Um, and so, it starts with the little stuff, and it starts with just building connections and relationships, and kind of allowing that to flourish over time.
As you spent time in the St. Thomas program and these things that you've done community service wise and FCA being something where you have a chance to mentor younger athletes, were there athletes on the St. Thomas program that as you moved up the ladder in seniority, that you took under your wing and said, okay, there were some old heads that mentored me at one point, so now I'm going to kind of return the favor. Did you see yourself doing that, or did you find yourself doing that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I felt like the more I grew in the program, the more it was not limited to my position group. I think that's or my side of the ball. I think it's very easy for guys to kind of fall into that. Um,
Right.
and so, I made sure that, I would be talking to, scout team D line or whoever it was, and knowing that, I hear them, and, I'm here to support. So, that's the biggest thing. I think, it's a team collective, and we're chasing after wins together. So I think that starts from the top of the top of the top to the bottom of the depth chart. So I think everyone can have an impact, and that starts with the leadership. And so just being able to go to those guys is something I try to do.
Absolutely. For those that are here viewing and joining us for this interview with Jacob, please feel free to ask questions, comments. Feel free to send those across. Type them into the comment section, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever it may be. They'll pop up over here on our side. We'll be happy to stop and address those. If you have opportunities that you would like to extend across the table, please feel free to send those across while we're in the interview, and we'll let Jacob stop and address those as well. We always encourage interaction during the interviews. We don't just want you to watch; we want you to interact. Maybe there's something you want to know that we haven't thought to ask, so please feel free to chime in. Um, let's I want to, and I was working on this while you were talking just a minute ago. I want to kind of let's see if I can find it. Where's that videos? I wanted to kind of give everybody a chance to see a little bit of your film, and I wanted to be able to give you a chance to kind of talk about some of this film and what we'll see on this. And so here's the highlight film that you've got posted currently. Take us through some of these plays here and talk about what was going on and just some of the catches that you made. I mean, you've made some really amazing catches, and that's what we were so impressed about was your hands, your mental focus, your concentration, your ability to adjust your body with the ball in the air and make difficult catches, and just your ability to come down with the ball and the fact that you are a solid route runner and you've got good hands. talk to us a little bit about some of this film that we're showing right now.
Yeah, I think I credit a lot of my IQ and thought process of the game from Coach Dotson, who's been my position coach for the past 4 years. He's now at Stetson University. He's going to do great things this year. But, I think he would always emphasize to me, you got to attack the ball and you got to be aggressive. You have to be the aggressor. And I think a lot of these plays, I'm coming back to the ball. My hands are out. And I'm using my body leverage as a way to separate myself from the DB, like that one right there, actually.
Yeah, I want to kind of back up here. So here it is, kind of a little stop and go to the corner here. There's a little stop go. You got multiple DBs on you. I mean, you're pretty covered up. And you make this amazing catch in the back of the end zone. I mean, it takes great concentration and focus and balance for you to be able to do those things. And I just, like I said, we were really impressed with such a big receiver, big body receiver, and the ability that you have to run routes and the great hands that you show. And like I said, just that mental focus and concentration.
Yeah. I think, it just starts with reps on reps, and being comfortable, saying, I'm going to have to put my body in an awkward position, to make a catch, but practice and repetition is going to allow me for that to be, this subconscious thought while I'm out there. And so, a lot of these plays that I'm, watching back on now, I've probably done this 100 times in practice of just being able to,
like this one here, you're one-on-one, and he's on you pretty tight. Yeah, I mean, you just go up and make this catch in the back of the end zone. I mean, you turn your body and everything, you still come down with it. Talk to me about where the competitiveness in you comes from, because I'm curious, where is the competitiveness and the willingness to put your body in harm's way and to have to contort and adjust and all these things to make these kind of catches? Sometimes you see receivers that may not be so willing to do those kinds of things, but you seem to kind of relish that type of environment.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to will, I think I've always had that. And I think that my parents have instilled that in me, whatever that I'm going to attempt to do it to the best of your ability. But, obviously with football, there can be a little bit of an aggression with that. And so, I think I'm just naturally competitive. I want the ball. I want to be able to make an impact. And when that opportunity does come at receiver, you got to be ready. You got to be prepared. And so that's what I've tried to do.
Like this one right here, this I think it's about the last one on the film. This one, you're on the lower end of the screen here, and you're one-on-one. And I mean, again, you're pretty covered up. That guy's not far off of you at all.
Yeah.
And you just go up and high point the ball. And I mean, you really compete for the ball right there.
That one did not feel good. I'm going to be honest. But that's just like another one of those examples of, you got to make a play. It's you and the DB, and
yep.
You just kind of got to get up there. So
when those plays are called, your teammates just kind of look at you and like, he's gonna go get this. Like, we ain't even got no doubt in our mind. He's gonna get this.
Yeah, no, I feel I definitely have my trust and my support of my teammates, and um, I felt like our wide receiver room in general pushes each other, and I think we make it a huge impact on our team. So I think that someone makes a play, we're always talking like, well, who's going to make a better one before the end of the practice, or who's going to make a better one in game. So I think that competition as a group allowed us to really go strive and go from good to great.
What's the thing that you feel like you've grown the most, the area that you've grown the most, or the one thing that you've learned that's made you a better receiver coming through the college ranks and trying to move on to be a professional athlete? Is it blocking? Is it playbook study, film study? Is it releases? Is it what's the area that you feel you've grown the most?
I think understanding the game of football.
Okay.
I look back at a lot of my high school film and I'm like, man, I did not know how to do releases well. I did not know how to run the best routes. I was an okay blocker, and I think I've developed in all of those categories, but I think just my knowledge of the game, and that stems from coaches like Coach Dotson,
Okay.
who really instilled within me that it's chess, not checkers, and you're going to really have an advantage over someone by understanding your keys and responsibilities, understanding your pressure read,
Yeah.
and being able to pick up on tendencies within the defense, within the coverage, or within that player guarding you.
How many hours a week do you feel like you put in film study wise?
I don't know. I put in a good amount, because I'm always watching. I'm not only watching, my team, but I'm also watching, football in season, and that's the beauty of college football and the NFL. It's just you have so much football to watch, and you have so much new things that you can learn.
Yeah.
So you're always evolving as a player, and you're always evolving schematically. So I think that's what's going to set you apart. If you like to watch the guy who's doing it the right way, or he's getting open, well, I should probably take some notes on that.
Okay.
And so I feel like I put in a good amount.
So there's usually two types of leaders on the football field. There's always the loud, boisterous, rah rah leaders, the Ed Reeds, the Ray Lewises, the talkative leaders. Then there's that quiet, lead by example, bring your lunch pail to work kind of leader. Which one do you feel you are, and why?
I think I'm a lead by example
Okay.
type of guy. I think I can speak up when I feel like I need to, and I feel like people will listen. But I've always been a believer of actions speak louder than words, and
Sure.
I think if you're able to show that day in and day out, you know, as you continue to move forward, all of a sudden you look behind you and you got guys following. So I
Right.
think that I wasn't always, the rah rah, screaming type of guy, but I would get on guys for sure, as I expect them to get on me.
Right.
But I felt like I led a lot through, by example.
Can you remember a moment in your college journey where an old head kind of had to get on you?
Oh, what? Too many times. Too many. There's too many to count, honestly. But that's what I love. I think you learn that very early in college
Right.
football. And that's beyond the football field. That's in the weight room, that's in team meetings. And so yeah, I've definitely had a lot of those guys get on me. But it's out of love. So I think
Well, yeah, and it seasons you.
exactly.
When I was in the Marine Corps on active duty, I can remember some of the guys that were more senior to me that had more time in service and higher rank levels. Um, you have what's called non-judicial punishment, and of course, obviously, there's a lower level to that, kind of like um, counselings or write-ups. And you get somebody, and then something else happens, and then there's court martials and things like that. And I can remember the first time I ever got what's called a page 11, kind of like a counseling, a write up kind of situation.
Okay.
And I was devastated by it. And one of my supervisors, non commissioned officer in charge, pulled me to the side and he took me under his wing. And he was really like a mentor to me. And we still talk to this very day. We've been friends, brothers ever since. But I can remember him and several other Marines that I'm still close with today that took me to the side and said, you're not a good Marine unless you got at least one page 11 in your book. Like, if you don't have one in your record book, you're not a good Marine. So that was kind of the standard. Like, that's where you're learning, you're growing. If you get one, now, yeah, the obvious object of the game is not to get a whole bunch of them, but if you get one, it's okay. It's just kind of seasoning. It's just teaching you the ropes, so to speak. So,
most definitely.
I think it's the same thing as an athlete. When the old heads get on you a little bit, point to the side and have a conversation with you. Like you said, it's not personal or political or anything. It's just them trying to help you grow, trying to show you the ropes. And so now on the flip side of that coin, has there been moments in your college journey where as you moved up the ladder in seniority, you had to pull a young freshman or sophomore to the side and kind of have a conversation about, hey, the standard here is this, and this is the way we do business around here? Or
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, everyone's going to have that at some point. And, honestly, if you're not getting approached or you're not getting, yelled at in a sense, you're doing something wrong. And
yeah,
I think that guys will start to see that it's not out of form of punishment or yapping at one another, but it's out of form of, we see the potential, we see where you can be at in terms of growth.
Yeah.
So we're just going to address it.
Yeah. As a coach, I mean, I've told players and I've heard other coaches tell players a lot of times, because especially in this new modern era, a lot of players are not used to being coached hard or yelled at or challenged or called out. Sometimes they get in their feelings about that. And you'll see players, say things on social media about coach so-and-so yelled at me or whatever. And as coaches, that's kind of one of the things we tell you is that when a coach stops yelling at you, when a coach doesn't have anything to say to you about your performance on or off the field, that's when you actually need to care.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's a problem. If I'm yelling at you and I'm coaching you hard and I'm trying to push you, there's a reason for that. But when I get quiet and I just ignore you and I stop doing that, now we got a problem.
Definitely.
So I totally agree with what you had to say about that. I definitely always like to talk about leadership and get guys' opinions on leadership and which role or model that they see themselves fitting into. And so wanted to kind of talk about that. Now, let me ask you this. On the flip side of the leadership coin, athletes are an inspiration to a lot of people. They're role models for a lot of people, whether it's the youth or youth athletes or it's young adults or whoever. You're an inspiration and a role model to a lot of people. How important is it to you, the image that you portray on and off the field, to those people who may look up to you and call you a role model?
It means a lot. And I think I take that with a lot of pride in being a role model. And I try to always remind myself that, you know, little impacts can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Little conversations, little interactions. And I'm very lucky to be able to, have that role for other people. And I've always wanted to be the guy that I thought I would be when I was a younger kid. And the guys that I looked up to growing up, I wanted to be just like them. And so I think trying to remind myself of that, is important.
So since you mentioned that and opened that door, I'm going to go ahead and ask that question. Um, Growing up
Hmm.
and then switching into the receiver role, was there a receiver specifically on the college or professional level that you looked up to, or you watched and said, "Hey, I want to kind of be like that guy. I want to emulate him on the field," or
Yeah, I loved Keenan Allen. Um, that was someone who I really tried to model my game towards. And he was always super flashy, but he was just super, kind of under the radar guy, but was always making plays, consistent route runner, great hands, bigger body. Um, I looked up to him. I looked up to um, Adam Thielen, obviously from the Vikings, being a hometown kid.
yeah,
Um, and then, guys like Larry Fitzgerald, um, um, guys who kind of just did it the right way. Those are just a few that, um, made an impact on me.
yeah. Larry Fitzgerald, I've always had a great deal of respect for him because he's just kind of that quiet, go to work, do what I got to do, but work extremely hard kind of guy, good character, never a real diva or prima donna type, always just kind of a real down to earth, humble guy.
Hmm.
Um, what about now? As you kind of look to open the door to the pros, what receivers are you kind of looking up to now? Has that changed, or is it still the same? Or
I think it's definitely transitioned a little bit.
okay,
Um, I think there's just so much versatility um, within the NFL specifically. And I've honestly looked up to a lot of tight ends who are changing the game. Obviously Kelsey and Kittle, but um,
yeah,
I look at guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Lions, um, Puka Nakua, um,
yep,
those type of guys who um, are really versatile in kind of all different levels of the offense. Um, and those are guys who I really like their game because they're smart players, but
yep.
they're also big time impactors.
Off the field, who do you look up to and why? And before you answer that, let me say this: it can be anybody.
Yeah.
Camp counselor, a coach, a teacher, a professor, a parent, a relative, a next door neighbor, somebody you just passed on the street and they gave you a piece of advice that stuck with you. I mean, it could be anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I look up to my parents big time. They've always been my number one supporters. But I look up to you know some of my coaches that I've had that have really made an impact on me. Um, I have some awesome teachers that I've had growing up, including a teacher, one of my math teachers, Miss Hauk. I was at a high school. So she has the biggest heart. She's um, always leads by example. And those are leaders who don't get don't get the credit. And so I try to remind them of that often, how much I appreciate them.
Okay. We're here with Jacob Wildermuth, wide receiver, University of St. Thomas. 6'3", 220 pounds. We've been talking to him and getting to know him. We've talked about his college journey and his high school journey, and um, we're talking about leadership and community service and role models and who he looks up to and things of that nature. Um, if you're watching, and obviously we've got quite a few people viewing, please feel free to ask questions. If you have something that you would like to know specifically, if you're a coach, scout, GM, player personnel director, if you have an opportunity you would like to extend to Jacob, please feel free to send that across. You can type it in the comments. It'll pop up over here on our side, and we'll stop and address that, or we'll let him answer whatever questions you may have. Want to take a second, real quick, if I could. I want to talk about Prodigy X Football just very briefly. One of our official sponsors. They sponsor our travel team, our professional travel team. They're the ones that are responsible for the production of our uniforms, our logo, our helmet decals, coaches apparel, etc. Aaron Anderson, Prodigy X Football, they do a great job. They've done an amazing job with us sponsoring our travel team project. Whether you're a team on the youth level, middle school, high school, college, even pro. If you need uniforms or coaches apparel, or you need merchandise in line or logo or helmet decal design, call Aaron Anderson, Prodigy X Football. Tell them that Hidden Gem Sports Scouting sent you their way, and they will take amazing care of your team. So, just real quick, wanted to throw that out there. Let's talk about we've talked about obviously who you look up to on the field and then off the field. When your football career is all said and done, when the last game is played and you hang up the cleats for the final time, what are your goals, your plans, your dreams after the game of football? What do you want to do once you turn that page in the book and start that next chapter?
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of different passions and interests. I think one of them, still being around athletes would be medical sales. Being able to get in that realm, I think would be really fun and awesome.
Okay.
But also some sort of, mentorship. I've always considered looking into teaching and going into the education system because I know from the teachers who have impacted me, I kind of want to repay that and do a favor for, these next line of generation kids. But I think my biggest purpose is really, to serve and make an impact on others, big or small. So, I want to do something that I'm passionate about, and as long as it's helping people and making an impact on maybe one or two people, that's what I want to be a part of.
Now, have you completed a degree program so far at St. Thomas, or are you finishing up right now? Or
Yep, I'm all completed. So I finished, graduated with business administration, focus in marketing. So
and that's a Bachelor of
yep, Bachelor of Science.
Okay,
Yep.
Bachelor of Science degree. Okay, I got you. So, what made you want to major in business and have that marketing focus and things? What drew you to that program?
I think I came in just with the mindset of like, how can I make a lot of relationships and get involved in sort of like the sales environment, sales field.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a sales program, but there was a marketing program. So I
Okay.
wanted to get into that. And I had a lot of very awesome adjunct professors who have made a big impact on me and
Okay.
definitely got me leaning towards, that side of my career post football.
Gotcha. Okay. I gotcha. Makes sense. Makes a
Yep.
lot of sense. Your passport ready? Correct.
Yep. Passport ready.
So if I ask you to pick it up and show it to me, you can actually physically hold it up and say, "I have my passport."
Yep.
Not waiting on it to come in the mail. Didn't just do the application.
Passport
Physically got it ready to go.
Yep, passport is on me.
Good deal. Good deal. That's something that the European teams, we've had that experience in the past. Players are like, oh, yeah, I've got my passport. And then we get them an opportunity. They're like, hey, I applied for it last week and I'm still waiting on it. I'm like, that was not what I asked you.
Yep.
When I asked you, do you have a passport? So I always specify now. And so I always try to make sure that we highlight in these interviews that
Totally.
our clients have a passport. And so for those of you who are watching, if you are an overseas coach, owner of a team, president, general manager, you heard him. He has his passport in his hand. He can physically pick it up and show it to you right now. So he is a guy that's ready to go. Talk about goals with pro football. Like obviously the end goal is the NFL. That we all know that's the end goal, common answer out of everybody. But if the NFL's not knocking on the door right now, what levels and what leagues are you trying to attack first and foremost?
I think CFL and European leagues for sure. I think I want to be able to showcase that in those specific leagues, and I think those opportunities will be able to come. So I think that's what I'm focused on and kind of looking forward to.
What about the UFL? What's your thought process of what you've seen out of the UFL?
Yeah, I think the UFL is awesome. I like the UFL. I like the way they set it up, and I think, obviously, I think there's not as much coverage of it, but I think people should really take a look into it because there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of playmakers that will have a name for themselves in the NFL or CFL or continue in the UFL. And so that's another league too, which would be, a joy to play in and have an opportunity with.
Gotcha. All right. Get ready to throw a curveball.
All right, let's do it.
This is the hardest question in this entire interview. I know there were some questions you probably thought, man, this is pretty difficult, but I'm going to throw an even tougher one at you. EA Sports, they took away college football from us several years ago. They gave it back to us.
Yep.
All the smoke cleared, the deals were done, the handshakes were made. They gave it back to us. So this is a 3-part question. A, college football 2025, do you own it? B, have you played it? And C, if you do play it or have played it, who are you running with?
Okay, so I'm not a big video games guy.
Wow,
which is surprising. So, but I have played NCAA. Okay. So if I'm gonna roll with the team, I'm probably gonna roll with Oregon.
Whoa.
That's probably my team who I'm gonna roll with.
Now,
so
remember, you probably got some Minnesota people watching. You just said you rolled with Oregon.
Yep. You know what? Growing up, I loved their colors.
Yeah.
And I loved Marcus Mariota. So I was like, you know what? And Deontay Thomas. He was also a dog.
We had the opportunity and the honor of having Mariota here in Tennessee with the Titans. Unfortunately, he had a pretty incompetent staff at that time that pretty much ruined his career.
Yeah.
We've never been known for having a staff that can develop a QB, and to have a read option dual threat QB of his stature get drafted and brought here to be the face of the program, only to not really develop him and kind of put him in a situation that doesn't fit him, we pretty much ruined his career. I feel like he's just kind of been a journeyman ever since. He's never really found a place where he could just excel and take off and take control. You know who the biggest booster, the biggest sponsor, the biggest contributor to the Oregon program is, don't you?
Under Armour.
No.
Oh, Nike.
Uncle Phil. Phil Knight, the owner of Nike.
Yes.
They
He's putting everything into that.
That's why they have all the uniform combinations and all the helmets and all the different colored cleats and the best facilities in college football, because they have everything the best that money can buy. I mean, Uncle Phil puts millions and millions of dollars into that program, and
Oh yeah.
um, it's I've always been amazed at their program, because I think the duck mascot's pretty cool, because obviously duct tape, but um, just the fact that Uncle Phil and Nike contribute so much. I mean, every time they go to a bowl game, they get a new helmet and a uniform set.
It's crazy.
New set of cleats. I mean, they have a special rivalry game. They get a new uniform and a new helmet and a new set of cleats. I mean, I think they're probably, up to like 20 different combinations or more right now.
Yeah, they have
that they can pull out of the closet, and every week they have a whole different look, a whole different concept. I mean,
and as a kid, I was like, man, these guys got everything. So I love this.
Like even like breast cancer awareness, they had a really special like black and pink uniform, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Like he made that just jump off the screen. So I've always been impressed with Oregon. I wish Tennessee would take a page out of the playbook and every once in a while have a different uniform. Like we finally got the smoky grays, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like
Tennessee is starting to step up their game for sure, though.
Well, I love tradition. I'm all about the orange and white. Come on, man. Can't we have like more than two different uniforms? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. They broke out the orange helmets, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then we lost wearing the orange helmets, and I was like,
yeah, it's not.
Don't ever pull those out again. Like, put those back in the equipment room. Don't ever pull them out again.
Yeah, exactly.
That was stupid. You pulled out a bright orange helmet, and we got our rear ends handed to us. Don't ever pull that out of the equipment room.
Yeah.
So, talk about social media platforms. Where are you at? What are your handles? Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, jacob.wildermuth. You can find me on Twitter, capital J Wildermuth 2. And yeah, reach out to me, give me a DM, give me a follow. Any questions, I'm always happy to answer, interact with people. So, I'm on both.
So obviously it sounds like I've been butchering your name this whole time. And I want to apologize, because if I butchered your name, I really wish you would have corrected me right from the beginning. So is it Wildermuth? Wildermuth? Yeah. How do you say it?
Wildermuth.
Wildermuth. Okay.
Yeah. No, don't worry. I've had it butchered a lot, and at this point, it doesn't matter to me.
So. I like to be on point, though. I don't like to sound stupid and butcher.
No. I got you. You had it. You're like 90% there.
Well, you should have corrected me. You should have been like, "Hey, clown, look here. My name is this."
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, and if you have an opportunity for Jacob, feel free to DM us on any of our social media platforms. We're active on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. You can email us. You can call us. You can text us. You can call us on WhatsApp. You can DM us on WhatsApp. All that information is on our website. Feel free to contact us at any time. If you have an opportunity, we'll be more than happy to get with Jacob and let him know about those opportunities and facilitate getting that situation worked out. So, one, thank you for taking time out this morning. I know we backed it up a little bit. I apologize. I was up kind of late working, and I told you I dozed off for a little bit. And so when you texted me, I was like rubbing my eyes, trying to see what time of the day it was and trying to figure out what my bearings were. So appreciate you, though, taking this time out to do this. I'll get this on your profile here in a little bit. And get your evaluation piece wrote up, and hopefully get your film cleaned up here in the next several days, and we'll have more on the profile page for you. So, yeah. So, with that being said, what's your week look like? What's your itinerary?
Just training, working out, getting better. Working a little bit. And, my little sister just got back home from college. She's a freshman. So trying to spend some time with her and, catch up with the family and catch up with how her spring semester went. So
Yeah.
it'll be a good week. It'll be a good week.
Good.
Yeah.
We I know it's just starting to warm up there for you. And I know it normally doesn't happen until the end of the month, but my dad and stepmom opened up the pool. I think it was a week or two ago now. Easter weekend, they opened it up. So we're getting closer and closer to the weather warming up to hit the water. I was told
Definitely.
my nephew, my youngest nephew, who's 7. As soon as they pulled the cover off, not even 10 minutes later, he cannonballed into the water, and I'm like, dude, you do know there's been no heat on that water all winter, like,
Yeah.
and dirty on top of that, like,
Yeah. You got to clean that thing first.
yeah, no, he was like, nuh-uh. He cannonball right on in there, and I saw a video, and he's laid back, he's just floating around in the pool. I'm like, dude, there ain't no way. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he missed it. I mean, I'm ready for. I mean, the lake life will start soon. Hopefully, I'll try to get fishing out there soon. And so
do you throw a line in very often, or
I try to just some simple bass fishing,
okay?
or some crappie up north. But I like whenever if there's a friend who's out on the lake, hopefully try to get out there with him and have some peace.
There
So
you go, get a few beers, throw a line in.
yeah,
Yeah,
enjoy it,
I
love
got
it.
you. Are you more of an artificial lure guy, or are you a live lure type person?
Mix, honestly, kind of depending on like maybe who I'm fishing with. I got some buddies who either if they're like, yeah, I got a batch of minnows or worms, I'm down for that. But some of the artificial stuff has been pretty solid, works pretty good for me. So
Yeah, and we, being from Tennessee, we have Bill Dance, obviously, and um, Bill Dance grew up watching him on TV and fishing show and everything that he did, accomplished fishing. And so, growing up, I was always the artificial lure guy because I wanted to be out on the water like him and using all the different baits. But I never understood the science of how certain ones have to be cranked a certain way and certain ones bounced up and down, just different
yeah,
things. Like,
yeah,
I just throw it out there and think like, okay, it's gonna get a bite, and I
yeah,
get really frustrated because I wouldn't get a bite, but I didn't understand like you got to crank it a certain way and jerk it a certain way and bounce it up and down a certain way, and like there's more to it than just throwing it out there. So
definitely.
I spent more time throwing lures into the water and not getting bites or getting hooked up in trees and losing my lures altogether. That's really frustrating. You go to Walmart or wherever and you buy a bunch of lures that are artificial and you spend 20, 30, 50 bucks, whatever it is. And you go out and first thing you do is you hit a limb and you lose one. It's like, you gotta be kidding me, man.
Yep,
Right
exactly.
back to Walmart we go, buy some more.
Yep, exactly.
So,
That's how it goes. A lot of patience. So
yes. Fishing will teach you a lot of patience.
mhm.
A lot. So yeah. Well, real quick, I didn't think to ask this, but I want to ask before we get out of here.
Mhm.
What was your take on the draft? What's your takeaways from the draft this year?
Um, I was telling a couple friends this that um, the edge players,
Mhm.
defensive linemen, and offensive linemen are really starting to make more of an impact on teams, and people are starting to recognize like that's where it starts with. I think a lot of the recognition gets thrown around the QBs and receivers and
Yeah,
DBs. But there are some athletes out there that are 280 running, 4.6,
yeah.
and
300 plus pound clocking 4.7s and 4.8s.
yes, and unbelievable athletes. And so I think that you're starting to see a trend now where, there were probably 3 or 4 wide receivers drafted in the first round, and however many, you know, D linemen and O linemen were drafted, maybe 10 to 12. I think from the past, it's been a lot of, at least past couple of years, there's a lot of skill positions being drafted.
Mhm.
But I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of focus on building the interior and working out from there just because of the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this year overall was not real good for the QB
No.
group. I was surprised Will Howard went so late winning a national championship. Quinn Ewers, I could kind of see because he was beat up a lot during his career. He stayed injured quite often.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay injured, they're going to look at you as a liability. They're not going to look at you as a big time first round pick because there's a concern that you won't, the money they put into you, they won't get a return on it because you'll be on the sideline a lot of times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
I could kind of see that. I felt bad for Cam Ward. I think he's a good football player. I think he's
Are you talking about Shador?
No. I'm talking about Cam Ward, the Miami Hurricane first pick of the
You
draft.
feel bad for him?
Well, he didn't even hardly get talked about. He got picked, and then nobody said a word about him.
Yeah.
And then obviously we had the circus of Shador Sanders and Dad primetime and all the whining and crying and I'm going to go ahead and ask. I know it's going to probably create a political reaction here, but what was your opinion on the Shador Sanders ordeal?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I think that could have been an impact, but I mean, he's a great QB. So I think the Browns are getting a good player. I mean, outside of
I wouldn't say he's great. I would say he's good.
Really. I think he's a pretty good QB in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say pretty good. 13-12 D1 winning record though is not first round pick status. That's barely above 500. I mean,
yeah, I think I don't know. I think people look. I think people got to look in the situation too. So I guess time will tell, to be honest. So,
well, your Oregon Duck QB, Dylan Gabriel, is there in Cleveland now. Got drafted right ahead of Shador. I think from a coach's perspective and a scout's perspective, I think a lot of that with him was self-inflicted between him and his dad.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching Deion when he was in his prime, actually playing. I was 80s and 90s kid, so I actually got to see him play. He's always been the extremely self-confident, tad cocky, tad arrogant type player. And I think that maybe he didn't talk enough to Shador about that there's a time and a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a time where you have to be really humble. I think when you're on camera holding up Rolexes that you wore on your wrist during a game and talking about your Rolls Royce and the exchange, I think it was between him and the Colorado State QB after the game, there was some social media stuff going on during the week. And so he goes over and he's on camera, not willing to shake his hand and then mouthing off at him. And I think all the camera hype of, I'm the best QB in the class. I should be first. You got to draft me. All these things that was being said and done and portrayed. I think that the NFL is a business. And that's what I tell every athlete. It's a business. And you have to understand everything is done on a business mindset. And I think that, I know that the NFL shield, so to speak, doesn't like to be told what to do. And they don't like people trying to buck the system. And I think that all the things that he and his dad did, all the things they said, all the things that they, were putting out, and the fact that his dad was talking about, my kids aren't going to play for these teams or those teams, or I'm only going to allow teams that'll draft both sons at the same time to draft them. I think they just shot themselves in the foot. Literally, the old figurative saying, "Shoot yourself in the foot." They kind of, instead of somebody else doing it, it was kind of like Deion and Shador took turns taking the gun out of somebody else's hand and saying, "Here, I'll do it myself."
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
you hate to say that for him, but you got to humble yourself. And on top of that, preparation too. Preparation is key.
Mhm.
Even off the field in interviews, I think this is important. You know, supposedly some of the teams gave him offensive install packages, plays and install package, and told him the day before the interview, when you come in, make sure you're prepared to talk about this and draw it on the board and explain it, talk about install and all that. Supposedly, the reports are close to the NFL that he walked into these meetings and was not prepared at all. And just when somebody said something about it, he just kind of slushed it off like, whatever, like, oh, well. And when they kind of got onto him, coaches and GMs and people got on him about lack of preparation, lack of professionalism, he kind of threw a temper tantrum and he got upset, kind of like, who are you to talk to me like that? Like, I'm Deion Sanders' son, and I think too, you rub people the wrong way and you give the wrong impression. And I think just the whole totality of everything, I think that's just what kind of did him in. And the NFL Shield said, okay, we're going to teach you a lesson. We're going to humble you the way we do it.
Mhm.
5th round draft pick. There you go.
Yeah.
And I think too, the teams in general just don't want that circus. They don't want all that problem. And that's what it'll be. It'll be a problem. It'll be a cancer in the locker room. And there were some rumors and rumblings that there were some issues in the locker room at Colorado that some of his teammates and him didn't see eye to eye. And the other thing I heard people talking about was that there was some concern with coaching staffs that if we draft him and it doesn't go well, there's going to be all this rumbling about bringing dad in, let dad be the head coach. And now there's not job security. He's never been coached by anybody but his dad. Will he be able to take hard coaching? I just think the totality of everything in general just kind of did him in.
Mhm.
Now, as I heard yesterday in a podcast with Chris Carter, based on what little signing bonus he's going to get and stuff like that, he's basically going to work for less of a paycheck than he did in college.
Yeah, that's the NIL, difference for sure. And I think you see that with a lot of guys. And that's just, that's the sacrifice and kind of the new change of college football with NIL. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. Time will tell. And I'm excited.
He's gonna have to prove himself, is what I mean. Is basically now you're looking for less money. Now you're gonna have to prove that you're worth that money.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll see. But anyway, I just want to ask get your insight on the draft and what you thought and what your takeaways were from it. But listen, have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your week. I will be in touch probably later this afternoon.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you again for doing this.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everybody that's watched. We appreciate you viewing at least. We hope that you'll join us next time. We bring another new client forward and let you get to know them. And again, we encourage participation. So please don't hesitate to ask questions or comment. We encourage it. We love it. So with that being said, everybody have a good rest of your Monday. Have a good week, and we'll see you back here again soon.